Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the webinar on Beyond the Textbook, Designing Learning Experiences for Deeper Engagement. This session is presented by Pallavan Learning Systems in association with Ritinjali and Center for Escalation of Peace. Pallavan Learning Systems is an educational research organization centered around the idea of learning how to learn. Through curriculum work, professional development, and platforms such as this webinar, we aim to keep conversation on education thoughtful, relevant, and responsive to changing times. Ritinjali works towards the empowerment through holistic education and skilling, building community capacity with dignity and inclusion at its core. The Center for Escalation of Peace creates platform for dialogue across borders, especially focused on young minds, recognizing that peace must be actively nurtured. Today's conversation invites us to reflect on how we can move beyond content coverage and design learning experiences that are engaging, inclusive, and meaningful. If you have questions during the discussion, please share them in the chat box. We will take them up during the question and answer session. Now, it gives me great pleasure to invite my colleague Kriti Goswami, who will moderate the session. Over to you, Kriti.
Good evening, Thupten. Good evening, everyone. Textbooks provide structure, sequencing, and alignment to the curriculum. But meaningful learning goes beyond content coverage, as mentioned by Thupten as well. It emerges when students are able to connect ideas to their lives, reflect critically, and engage actively with knowledge. Beyond the textbook does not mean abandoning the structure. Rather, it is about expanding how learning is experienced. This webinar will explore how classrooms can become dynamic and inclusive learning ecosystems where collaboration, dialogue, inquiry, and reflections are embedded in everyday teaching and learning. Good evening, everyone. We will now begin by introducing our panelists. First, we have Dr. Ritinjali Hegde, who teaches at the School of Education, Azim Premji University, Bangalore. She holds a PhD in the Sociology of Education from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Dr. Hegde brings with her rich experience of over 2 decades in the field of education, having worked in various capacities as a teacher educator, instructional designer, and content developer. She has authored several articles and writes extensively in newspapers and magazines on issues related to school education. Now let us introduce our second panelist, Mr. Krishna Kumar Purohit. He is a senior physics and STEM facilitator at Prakriti School, Noida. He works with a team of facilitators to design hands-on experiential approaches to learning. His work focuses on creating meaningful learning experiences that moves beyond traditional chalk and board methods. He strives to ensure that students learn through exploration and inquiry. Mr. Purohit holds a master's degree in social entrepreneurship from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. Now we introduce our third panelist, Mr. Yangsil Wangyal. He is an 11th grade student at the Royal Academy Druk Gyalpho Institute in Bhutan. He has a strong interest in technology and science and is passionate about using innovation for the greater good. He is currently working on several projects, including the development of a Zonka AI chatbot aimed at preserving and promoting Bhutanese linguistic and cultural identity. Thank you all for being part of our webinar on Beyond the Textbook, Designing Learning and Experiences for Deeper Engagement. Let us begin with our first question to Yangsil. Yangsil, what does a typical day of learning looks like at the Royal Academy? Can you share an experience where curiosity took your learning somewhere which was beyond the textbook?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak, ma'am. To answer how the day in the life, how a learning day at the Royal Academy looks like, we firstly have to start at during the mornings. Early in the morning at 6:30, the students have to come outside and do their morning physical, and it is a great way to start the day. I I would mention that it is a bit tedious to wake up in the morning, but it is a really great way to maintain your body and keep your body healthy, as doing physical is a really important part of our lives, and we believe that physical health is also to be maintained. And after our physical, we have uh, our breakfast, and after breakfast we are given 20 minutes to reflect with ourselves. We call that 20-minute period Nyandro. And during Nyandro, the students can maybe schedule their day and think about what they want to do after the Nyandro, or they could even reflect on what they've done before in the past, maybe yesterday or last week. And just looking at these two, morning physical and Nyandro, you can understand that learning at the Royal Academy isn't about being led by someone or being taught by someone, but it's actually about taking ownership of what you learn. During our morning physicals, we aren't actively taught by teachers, but we are actually led by student coordinators who are senior students. And it isn't really leading as well. It's us with the student coordinator discussing what we need to do and what we believe is better for the students to do during morning physical. And that could include a variety of things. Maybe if the group that the student coordinator is leading is not good at endurance, he or she could mention to the students that endurance is a really important area that we might have to improve on. But the students could have different opinions that they can voice out as well. And during these kind of interactions, the students can actually have a say in what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. So looking at that, I believe that for the students ourselves as well, we should take ownership of what we learn. And basically learning is for ourselves, but helping the teachers or the leaders to teach properly, and what we actually want to learn, actually we can voice it out. That would also be a daily routine at the Royal Academy.
Thank you, Yang. I really like, taking ownership with the, teacher and then going forward with the entire learning experience. My next question is to Krishna. So, according to you, what do you think is one of the biggest myth people have about teaching science or STEM beyond the textbook? Can you share any experience in your classroom? Krishna, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think I lost you a little, but I think I largely
So,
understood the question, which is that, I mean, what
experience.
the challenge that you, or the myth, sorry, the myth that you generally have. So I think I think the biggest myth I believe is that people believe that, and these days I think it is more uh, prevalent. We as parents, a lot of people believe that, and then as educators also, a lot of people believe that you just need to go beyond textbooks. I mean, it's just a rhetoric of sorts, that go beyond textbooks and things will happen. And I think that is not how it is. And I mean, there is, in fact, there is a lot of pressure. I mean, you feel that as a teacher, that what are you doing beyond the textbooks? So, but what happens is, so I'll just give you an anecdote. I mean, we were doing structure of atom. We were trying to understand, what atom is made up of in the class once. And I mean, I thought that let's do a role play. Let's, because it's anyways an abstract topic. Nobody has seen an atom. I mean, forget about seeing an electron or a proton or a neutron. So we decided, let's do a role play. Let's go outside. And then there is a famous experiment which was done where, they just bombarded the atom with something, and they realized, what atom is made up of, because, some things passed and something did not pass. And based on that, they realized that, atom is mostly empty. So we decided to do the same experiment. We decided to create an atom where people were very close together, and then we asked, the particle which was supposed to bombard to go and hit them, and the particle was not able to pass through. So we decided, see, the actual experiment tells you that, the particles were able to pass through very easily. So the atom must not be this. Atom must not be something which is made up of, things which are very close together. So atom must be made up of things which are not very close together, or maybe because a lot of particles go through. So, basically we did a role play where I tried to replicate that entire setup, which was basically an experiment in a very sophisticated lab, which we generally do not do in the school. And there was a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. Kids enjoyed, loved it. They wanted to be there, maybe for another session as well. But I'm not sure if they really learned about the structure of atom. It ultimately, you have to go back to the class. You will have to give them some problems and you will have to check for their understanding. But what actually happened was that our relationship, that strengthened. Now kids don't hate me as much. So they were like, okay, we can sort of bear with you. And if you want to say something in the class as well, we'll listen to you. So that way you build a relationship, which is definitely is required. I mean, until unless you build a relationship, it doesn't work. So I believe that's the biggest myth. People feel as if, go outside the classroom, go beyond the textbooks, do some fun demo, and kids would automatically start learning. I think we underestimate there the what beyond the textbook is has turned into is basically a rhetoric. While what we have to do is we have to do something where kids get excited about it, they get curious about it, and also they start, we start building a bond with them. And then, you can guide them, you can nudge them. So I'm not sure if I've very clearly answered it, but I think, sort of
Yes.
there's a lot of hype around it, and which is what I want to break.
We will come to the challenges and
Hmm.
the structure, because going beyond the books, it has a lot of there are boards and there are administrative things which happens in school. But before that, Roop Manjari, the work which you do, you often describe the textbook as a starting point and not as a limitation. Could you explain the philosophy behind the idea that textbook is a starting point and it's not a limitation for the teachers and the students?
Yeah, thank you, Kriti, and for having me here. And welcome to everybody, of course. Basically, why I said that is a textbook which says don't go beyond it is not a good textbook at all. Okay, no good textbook will say that you don't limit yourself to the textbook, right? Of course, it depends on the teachers and the system, it's there. But before going into how we can make the textbook interactive, I just want to flag off two very critical things. One is, I mean, we all know that India and even elsewhere, what we have is the prevalence of the textbook culture, which goes back to the colonial period, actually. But I'll not go into that. The thing is that why does it happen? Because at the end, we have that exam. Okay, the fear of the exam is always looming large, and therefore teachers, of course, have no other way but to make children in very, very, I mean, the worst circumstances. What happens, we know that teachers make children memorize what is there in textbooks without even understanding most of the times, dictate answers, and they're supposed to be regurgitating that answer in the exam, and that one right answer. There's this thing about this one right answer, but we need to, so for that, how do we change that? One is, of course, we need to think about an evaluation system at the end which needs to be very different, right? We cannot have those I'm not saying take off the MCQs and others, but we need to allow children to be thinking critically, to be reflective. This is therefore, and how do we make it happen in the classroom, make it a reality, is by changing the way we assess and evaluate children. That's one. That's like, and it's not that it's not doable, it can be done, right? That is one, because we're talking about critical thinking skills, but are we actually practicing it? That's one. The second thing, which is, I think, also very important for us to know, that, see, there's a huge body of research which exists and is happening on textbooks. Textbook studies is a big area of research. And the other problem that textbooks we need to be very, very conscious about is the kind of knowledge which is there in the textbook, right? And who creates that knowledge? It's not the teacher, like, we have teachers always are doing it. We don't have a say. It's kind of, it's a worldwide phenomenon. The textbooks are the repository of what we call approved knowledge, and that knowledge comes decided by who? The powerful sections in the society. uh, and we know the market is there, are market interests are there, and whose values do they uphold? They uphold the values of the powerful sections of the society in turn. And I would like to cut it short, I'll give a very simple example in a grade 1 textbook, which I always use in my classroom with my master students. It's a grade 1 textbook, supposed to be a social studies textbook, where you have this chapter called My Home. And the chapter has this picture of this house with a very, very plush house with double-storied house with different kinds of room. And the description says that our houses usually have different rooms for different activities. And then it goes on to explain a kitchen is for this, a drawing room is for this, bedroom is for this. And the visuals, so whose lifestyle, whose culture are we promoting? It's the very upper class, urban, very, very, not the rural context we are talking about. So we are shutting out a huge mass of population by using this kind of stereotypical and we're images and reinforcing it, right? Because if the textbook goes to a context where you have rural children, where it's marginalized sections, even in the urban areas, what happens, and that's what research says, and that's what Krishna Kumar has this wonderful article called Learning to be Backward. Okay, in the classroom, what happens if there are children from marginalized sections? These days, we have a huge diversity. Whatever is the admission policies, these children will learn to think that this is what we have with us is not worth it, right? So they internalize that kind of inferiority. And for those coming from a more privileged sections of the society, they get a very, very flattened understanding of the world around them. It doesn't help anybody, actually, right? So therefore, we need to be very, very careful about the stereotypes we kind of promote through textbooks content. It happens in the case of not just social studies, languages. It can also happen in the science textbook or in a math textbook. See, the gender stereotypes that we promote through math textbooks, for example, if you have those what we call the story problems, right? And typically, research shows that the girls are always buying or kind of playing with dolls, and the boys are typically buying or playing with cars. So, what are we doing? We are promoting gender stereotypes where it in reality doesn't really exist like that, right? So, those things are very, very important. And therefore, I would say that textbooks, what we do, what's the solution? One, of course, think of changing the evaluation process. And secondly, open up the textbook. Open up the textbooks by bringing in different kinds of knowledges, by being more inclusive. And we already have systems, not systems, we already have textbooks which have been designed in a very, very based on what is called the pedagogy of empathy, where you have a chapter in an NCRT, the national, NCRT's textbooks are used widely across the country, where you have a chapter called Chotu's Home. And what is Chotu's Home? Chotu is a child who comes from the rural area to the urban area. He's a migrant street child. And he finds this huge pipe, the huge pipes on the roadside, and he makes it that his home. And what is home after all? It's a place where you find your refuge, where you can shelter yourself against all the odds in life. And that is inclusion, right? Or say, for example, we have history textbooks which are not called ancient, medieval, modern anymore, but they're called our pasts with a plural. Why do we say our pasts? Because there are multiple pasts. There is a past where you have the kings and the ruling class. There is a past of the peasants. There is a past of women. And of course, and there are these questions which actually, there are questions embedded in these textbooks which allow teachers to pause and have a dialogic conversation. Ask children, okay? And I can come back later and give those examples. I think I've spoken a lot, so I'll keep quiet. I'll stop now. Yeah.
No. We are going to discuss about, the strategies for the teachers as well as student. But before that, Yangsel, I wanted to know, from a student's perspective, because you do a lot of co-designing of the lesson with the teachers at the Royal Academy. Can you share that? How does it happen? Does it reduce the pressure of, just sticking to the textbook?
Thank you for the question. And to answer that, co-designing what we learn with the teacher feels empowering, as a bit empowering, because we get to decide what we learn and how we learn it. But there was the mention of, does it reduce the stress of being able to learn it or not? And that I can't really say, as some students may learn more from, let's say, plays, doing drama, but there might be other students who understand more through quizzes and stuff. And that is something we must take suggestion, and we must get feedback from the students and the teachers And depending on that as well, we must design future learning experiences for betterment and improving ourselves. And moreover, that when we are designing our own curriculums and our own learning experiences, there are students that might be left out because we can't seamlessly design a perfect learning experience where each and every student learns the best. And that is a reality that we must face as well. But I believe that if we are able to design a learning experiences that is able to involve all of the students, this will at least bring a bit of joy into their learning experiences that may lead to deeper understanding, hopefully. But there is also that fact, ma'am. I think it does help the students to learn better, but the involvement of stress and reduction of stress might be a iffy question to say, maybe.
Thank you, Youngster. That brings me to the next question actually. That if we are going beyond the textbook, as a primary driver of instruction, do teachers, how can they design the learning experience which will be inclusive of all students? Because even in schools in India, there are different, as you said, that it's very diverse. There are different students coming from different walks of life. There are differently abled. So, going beyond the textbook, how can we have a learning experience where everyone, it's an inclusive um, setup? Krishna, do you want to answer that? Then Rupanjari, I will come to you.
Okay, I think it is not easy, for sure. Uh, Primarily because of reasons like we are still, and our classrooms are still structured in those 45-minute periods. And I mean, if you want everyone to learn, and I mean, of course, I mean, from common sense only, we can understand that not everybody has the same pace of learning, and not everybody learns the same way. Some people actually like learning from the textbook. They enjoy, or maybe they learn better when you are just making them solve the textbook problems. It somehow removes the clutter for them. Some people want to explore things. Some learners want to explore things. They want to get out and feel the phenomena, and then they want to go back to the textbook and find out the answer, that why did they feel the way they felt. So it is not easy, but I guess, I mean, again, the answer comes back to the same point, that you need to build connect. You need to have a very strong connection with everybody. I mean, all of us are learning together. So that mentality that teacher is the sage at the stage. I mean, we'll have to get away from that and learn together. All of us, so I'll have to accept my failures. I'll have to tell them that even I don't understand these things. Even I don't like this approach. Or if, for example, for some reason we are crunched for time, I will have to earn their approval if I want to, rush things, and tell them that, see, this is something that we'll have to do this way. Is it okay? If some people are not okay, then I'm ready for other ways of doing it. But can we do that later? So I'm just saying it's a constant push and pull. There is no single answer. Sometimes I feel that I'm able to do a good job. Sometimes I don't feel that. Sometimes I feel that I have just no clue. I'm so caught up in things that I do not know if anybody has understood. If I have been not just being, I mean, forget about being inclusive or including everybody. I feel that I have not been able to help even those who I can help by that approach. So again, but if you have that connection, if it is not a one day thing, if it's an year long or years long thing, then you can always talk about it. If they are curious about it, if they really want to learn, if I really want to share what I know, or if I also want to learn, then we can keep that journey on. I have seen many a times, for years together, learners would struggle, and then there would be something that would happen in their lives, some moment when they would suddenly become very curious, or maybe they'll get a little more, they'll start getting a little more rigorous in the way they do things, and things would start to click. So so I'm just saying that, I mean, if you are connected, if you have that bond, if you know that it is not easy, that's very important, I believe. If you know that it's not easy, and if you're constantly at it, it happens. But is there a secret sauce? I don't know.
I don't think so. There is a secret sauce. I think so. Everyday work and a lot of empathy, compassion, which, keeps teachers as well as students going. Um, Rupanjari, adding to that the strategies, how do we go beyond textbook and keep it inclusive? I'm adding another layer to the question that, there is paucity of time, which we have discussed with the teachers. It's a 40 minutes, as Krishna also said, that it's a 40 minutes thing. Then there are boards examination, which happens, or the teachers have a proper lesson plan, which is made by the curriculum department, and there are a lot of layers. So how do you suggest some strategies? How can teachers, go beyond and keep the structure intact?
Yeah, again, as Krishna said, it's not an easy thing. It's a very, very difficult thing in all these constraints. But sometimes I think this thing of the boards is coming, in the Indian context, it's coming only in class 9 and 10. Before that, nothing stops the teachers from, and there's no pressure that they need to. From the boards, there's nothing which says that you have to complete the entire textbook. There are 5, 10 chapters, whatever it is. So I mean, in many of the meetings that we have had, we have suggested that what you need to do is you need to divide the curriculum, the suppose syllabus, if you can call it. There are 5 chapters. There are some are assessed areas, examined areas, or some are non-examined areas. That's one way, right? You don't have to assess them in that pen and paper test every time. Okay, you need not do that. Until class 8, there's nothing which tells the school or the teacher that you need to, it's the school's own doing. We are all caught up like we have in quota right from class 7, we are starting the Fiji and all that things, right? But there's no need. In a regular thing, you can go, and therefore there comes that something that I typically suggest my students to take on is the what is called the inquiry, and kind of include a lot of elements of inquiry where the students is actively learning, right? And a lot of these things, if you look at I mean, even our NCRT textbooks, I would say, in the context of social studies, I would say, are some of the best designed textbooks because the element of inquiry is inbuilt into the textbooks. Now, what happens is that teachers, because of that pressure or that imagined pressure, I'm not saying that teachers are not understanding. There's from the management, wherever the pressure comes from parents, often it can come that parents want students to be prepared in a particular way, but those elements of inquiry are embedded in the textbook chapters. In the case of social studies, for example, there are, in the case of history, you have things like the primary sources, which talks about which makes children familiar with the idea of the historian's craft. The historians cannot construct the past without a primary source, right? You cannot just take some random YouTube video or what's floating in the WhatsApp groups. It is rigorous work. So, how do you start engaging children with that? By giving children primary sources which are already there, or you can get it from a reliable source. It could be a website, whatever, and make them actually interpret them, right? Interpret the sources. That's one way. That's one, because they're actively engaged, and then they can share, and teachers need to come in as a facilitator and consolidate that learning, fill up the gaps, elicit the responses from the children. That's one is there. Creating a timeline, for example. Children, even if you do a guided reading kind of a thing where you give questions to children, divide them, before that you divide them into small groups and you tell them these are the questions. Now you find out the answers from the simple strategies. Find out the answer. What is there in the textbooks? They're reading on their own and they're finding answers. They can even prepare questions. You can divide them into 2 groups. They can have a quiz. These are very simple, basic strategies, right? Going beyond history, you can have beautiful pictures. You're talking about anything, you get miniature paintings, you get a lot of things. You can often get them to do some model making. Say you're teaching the Harappan culture, you talk about these are the elements where you can actively engage, and also to in a way it can address that thing of the what we call the multiple intelligences, different ways of learning, not every day, or what we call the universal desire of learning, right? So not that you do it every day. Over a certain, suppose you have a chapter, you should have some substantial like 7 to 8 40-minute periods to transact that chapter. Okay, and you tell them to do, so a lot of these things can be, or say for example the textbooks do have very, very powerful storyboards. Okay, uh, And I'm also bringing in, and how are they designed? They're also bringing in very, very critical thinking questions. For example, I remember there's this inscription, for example, okay, and there's this inscription which basically talks about how who can be a member of what used to be called a sabha committee, okay. Now they read, they interpret. That's one level of doing. The next level, there are questions which says that, and from clearly from the description, you can make out that not everybody can be a member of that sabha. Okay, it's only, so it says those who are knowledge of the Vedas, and we know who had knowledge of the Vedas, right? Certain social groups were completely denied, women and the Shudras. Okay, and then there's a question: do you think women would have been part of this? Could have been members of the Sabha? That's the critical thinking. Then children start to think. Do you think a lottery would have been a better way to select a member of the Sabha? So, see, these conversations itself can make it a very, very inclusive. Of course, you are allowing children to bring in their lived experiences. We need to acknowledge that children are not what a very, very famous educator, Paulo Freire, said, that they're not empty, they're not coming with empty vessels, they're all coming with some kind of knowledge. We need to tap on that, right? We can't use the education system as a banking system where you deposit knowledge into the empty vessels. No, it's not that. We need to tap on to what they have, allow them to bring those examples out. And acknowledge that, okay, you may not, the child may not be completely correct, but then you can, of course, acknowledge, okay, you have said something. Can we hear from somebody else? Do you think this makes more sense? So there are ways you elicit responses and make it a very, very inclusive atmosphere in the classroom, right?
Okay.
So
Thank you. Thank you. There are a couple of questions from the audience. Young sir, this question is to you. How has your experience been as a student having a dialogue discussion with teachers on disagreements or differences of opinions, especially around concepts related to social science? An anecdote will be great to know.
Thank you for the question. And to answer that, firstly, we believe that having discussions is a really efficient way to deepen our understandings, as being able to gain different opinions from whether it be a peer, a friend, or a senior, or even the teacher for that matter, challenges our own viewpoint, which basically helps us to understand their viewpoint, to deepen our learning. But there's also the fact that disagreements can lead to maybe breaking down of relationships, but that is something that I really believe against, as I believe that sometimes sometimes discussions and disagreements will lead to greater learning. I don't really have an example to give for social science, but I can give an example of the recent biology class I had a week ago. There, it was a topic about lactic acids, and my teacher was saying how after continuous physical strain on the body, a lot of acid can be produced, and that lactic acid can ruin your muscles and lead to cramps in the body. But there was a certain group in our classroom, me and a couple of my friends, that strongly believed against it, as although lactic acid isn't the best for our muscles, there's also the fact that lactic acids can also burn out some of the toxins that are present in the muscle, and that can lead to better muscle growth and more functionality. And even if the lactic acid broke down our muscles, there's also the process of regrowing our muscles, which will lead to better and stronger muscle growth. So this was the two sides of our discussion. Our teacher saying that it would be really bad for our muscles, whereas the students were seeing how the lactic acid can be bad, but it's also a process in which we can uphold and grow our muscles at our conclusion. And this discussion went beyond our classrooms, literally, as the very next class our teacher came and said that both of us were wrong, and the correct answer is neither the teachers nor the students, as the lactic acid does both of what we expected it to do. It does damage it, but it also has its plus points, and it's effective. It also has its strengths and the way it can improve our body as well. So there's never this correct answer to doing things. And being able to discuss on such a topic with the teachers and the students has led to deepening our learning and our understanding of this lactic acid on our body, ma'am. That's the anecdote I can give.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question is there from the audience. Yes. Does the theory of multiple intelligence still holds true today, in your opinion? If yes, do you think AI can help us design differentiated learning experiences for diverse learners? Krishna, do you want to address that question? And then maybe I can take Roop Manjari's views on that.
I'm not very sure about what is theory of multiple intelligence, but if it is
But
about that various learners learn different way,
hmm.
okay, and
And
then
if AI can help in having the differentiated learning experiences, in your view, will that
okay,
AI
okay.
will
In my what I have seen, and we have been trying to include AI in wherever in whichever way we can. So what I've seen is that teachers, I mean, are basically limited by the fact that they are humans. So you can't access a teacher when it's after the school or when it is late at night. You can't ask a question infinitely. You can't have an infinite loop with the teacher. But why then? And those why and how questions which just keep going on till eternity. A teacher might not be able to answer because of the limited knowledge, or might just lose patience, or might have other things to do. So, I mean, for those scenarios at least, where pace or where time is a constraint and where knowledge is constrained as well, I think AI helps a lot. So, for example, a student who is very clear what he wishes to know, is aware how to structure a question, and is wants to get a deep dive into the subject. Maybe then, I mean, in those cases, I believe that for those kind of people, if that is the that's what theory of multiple intelligence mean, then that is where those students definitely should use AI in the right way. There are limitations to using a gadget, which most of us are aware of. I mean, they get distracted, they set on to do something, but they start doing something else. So all that happens. But if there is somebody who is motivated, if all that is given, that he is motivated, he is disciplined, he'll do what he really wishes to do, or she'll do what she really wishes to do, then AI is phenomenal. I mean, the infinite patience that an AI bot can have, that an LLM model can have, and the infinite amount of knowledge that LLM can have is amazing. It helps your curiosity. In fact, let me not just talk about students. It helps me a lot. I mean, when I discuss things with my students, multiple questions come up, and many a times I have no clue what is their right answer. Science, I am not aware of everything. So, and I want to understand because I have slightly bigger or broader base. So I have even more questions with the input that they have given me. So then I can actually very quickly now using AI probe those multiple angles and create an argument. And then we can have a discussion in the class. So it surely helps. When it is about pace, when it is about depth, it helps. But when it is about building the rigor, or when it is about building the passion for the subject, the interest in the subject. I mean, I don't think AI can do anything. For example, there are people say that some people are visual learners. They will only learn when you will make them see things, or some people learn through experiences. In fact, for people who learn through experiences, hardly AI could do anything. So we have been constantly talking about it. I have been constantly talking about this with seniors who know much more than I do about education. And I think the agreement more or less is that as a teacher, our job is to just provide an experience in the class, an experience that can make the learner interested in the subject, and can create a bond which can make us good friends, where we can go on embark on upon that journey together. Once that experience is created, then you can let them know about multiple sources through AI and through multiple other sources as well, where they can go and learn things on their own, on with their own pace. But that initial step, I think, is very critical. And if somebody is an experiential learner, if somebody is a visual learner, or if somebody is a learner, so I did a small survey with my kids. I asked them that, you are asking me these questions. I can bet you that all these questions you can get answered through an AI. Why don't you do that? Why don't you go and just open any AI chatbot and then get the answers. Why don't you do that? So some answered that AI is at times they don't learn well when it's all written. So it helps them when somebody is speaking, some physical person is speaking to them and is listening as well. So somehow that triggers something psychologically, and that helps them. Some answer that it is they get pretty lazy when it is about typing and using a gadget. They'll use a gadget only when they want to watch a good YouTube video or a movie or all that, but they would not use it for education. That they just get a little lazy about it. So what I'm trying to ultimately say is that I did try to understand it. I mean, I'm still trying to, and there is so much that I need to understand. But I understand that AI has a lot of limitations in because it does not. It is it can give you information, but it does not answer if it does not create that interest in the information. And secondly, it does not understand that why somebody who is asking the question is asking the next question. It can't read the expressions, it can't read the body language, it doesn't understand, or even if that is possible, it won't be able to understand uh, that what was the background behind it. Because most of the times AI conversations are very short conversations which has basically some other background which happened in the class or maybe in the lab. So again, I mean, maybe the answer is a little complicated, but what I'm trying to say is that multiple intelligences, I'm not sure, but there are pieces where it can be done. But as a teacher, I mean, my job or anybody's job is to understand that if it is helping and constantly question that and see if we can improve. So basically, what I'm saying is, to conclude, I do not know. I'm not sure.
But you did mention, that
Hmm.
continuous approach, continuous, that communication
Hmm.
and having the communication between the stakeholders, for example, parents as well as administrators and the students. That is
Hmm.
also very important.
Yeah,
There are,
yeah. That's always important. In fact, Rupanjali ji was just now mentioning that the school nobody stops school to not take exams till grade 8.
hmm,
But there is such a strong force, which is the parent body. The parent body, some of them enjoy when they see that their child is securing rank 1 in the class or rank 2 in the class. Or maybe some of them enjoy the fact that, or some of them fear the fact that okay, if he doesn't give an exam till grade 8, how would he cope with that exam pressure in grade 9? Because ultimately it has to be there. So, so what I'm trying to say is that as a school, the school that I'm currently part of, till grade 5, there are no exams. I have worked with schools where till grade 8, there are no exams. But even there, they would enroll them in some competition somewhere. They want to know, I mean, where my child is. So, and also we have seen this multiple times that exams do help in consolidation of learning. So, coming back to your point that yes, constant conversation with parents, and it's all about, again, how do you shape the society? How do I make the society understand that things are changing, things are evolving, and we have to constantly be questioning whether our current ways are working or not. That is not easy. People don't want to question themselves. So yeah.
thank you. Thank
Hmm.
you. Rupanjari, there is an audience question. So while teachers are constrained by the demands of our examination system, which is based on textbooks, and students are also used to being passive recipients, how can we get everyone excited about looking beyond textbook?
Yeah. See, I also was saying a little earlier the same thing. I mean, the way we kind of conduct or transact the lessons in the classroom, the first point is that for children, it's very important, as Krishna ji was also saying, that the connect, one is the personal connect, but also the connect with what you're going to be teaching. And how do we build that connect? By allowing children to share their experience. Okay, now suppose again I'll go back to, because I history is my background. So I mean, when we talk about history, what I would like to, I kind of suggest to my students that why don't we begin with something called the family history? Forget about 5,000 years, 2,000 years. What happened? That's so remote. Why can't we start with something like, what is history after all? It's a biography of people. of things around us. So what is it that you can bring in your from your family? Is it a photograph? Basically, again, taking them through the get a photograph from home or an object from home. What does it tell you about your family's history? And there is a very beautiful video I have seen about, which was done many years ago by, and this is in the context of a rural context in Karnataka. It was, I think, filmed by a filmmaker, very well-known filmmaker, but in the context is, I think it was a Karnataka SCRT who had done it, where children are asked to find the family history of their family, and they have this pencil and paper, and they go around asking their grandparents. So then they, one grandfather is saying it was war that time, and then the whole idea of the ration public distribution system comes in, and so they build up this whole story through by asking their family members, and of course they're also discovering their own family's history. There's so much of joy. I've done it in an alternative school where the children went around asking their grandparents about different things. What did they eat when they were small? How was food made? Things like this, and they set up an exhibition. They collected a lot of materials, and the children were really, really very, very overjoyed when they did it. So that's one way that connect. This is, of course, in a much, much lower class, I mean, primary level, but then that connect is very, very important. How do we make children connect to the thing that you're teaching? If it's food,
Yes.
I mean, that's again, but see, other issues in the society. It could be, going ahead, if it's something to do with political science, do something else. So the children are not, again, I'm saying, they're observing. They know what's happening around us. Okay. So tap onto those, what the children have, and then build the connect, give them that value their knowledge, what they're bringing in, and then shape it together. The teacher adds some resources, make them go and find out, like what is around them. uh, Taking for example, heritage walks, for example, make them, get them interested, let them go and find out something from maybe what's happening, to a survey in the market about if you're teaching modes of livelihood. So there are multiple ways it can be done, and or get people to the classroom itself, if that's possible, and make children talk to them.
Hmm.
I mean, talk those people. So there are many ways of doing it. And again, I'm saying that examination system, if I have some time, I'll or should I come back later? As is
We'll come back. A
Yeah,
closing,
yeah,
of course, your comments, the closing comments will come. A
yeah.
short question, Yangsel, from audience. Um, from a learner's perspective, what kind of classroom experiences make mean like learning? I know you have, talked about it, but here the question also says that how can teachers incorporate student voices without losing academic rigor? So, can you delve on that?
Thank you, ma'am. And to elaborate on this question, firstly, making the learning experiences feel meaningful and engaging is basically applying that to what's outside the classroom. If what we learn is actually being applied, let's say, in our real life scenarios, such as using maths to do surveys, using maths to create graphs of the surveys we've done, and maybe even using biology we've learned to enhance and grow our own bacteria in a lab. So engagement really comes from appliance to real life. That's what I believe. And I think this might be common for a lot of learners as well. And for the second part of the question, how can teachers incorporate student voices without losing academic rigor? I first want to clear the misconception that including student voices who wouldn't really lose upon academic rigor, as giving students voices on designing their own learning experiences is like asking them what and why you actually want to learn it. The why should not be because it's on the textbook, it will be on the exams. That shouldn't be the reason why you're learning something. The actual reason should be born out of curiosity, and that curiosity can be used to enhance learning. As if I'm curious about if I'm curious about how, let's say, a cell works, and that curiosity will facilitate my learning through the learning experiences I have here. So basically, working upon that curiosity is what matters, and just asking students and letting them voice out what they actually want to learn and why they want to learn it. And we could even delve into how they want to learn it, as each student has different ways of learning it, and asking how they want to learn it could even enhance it in a way, because as mentioned before, the curiosity is always there, and the curiosity will also emerge from their own personal reasonings, and how they want to learn it is going to be a part of that curiosity. So being able to converge all of these concepts together is what creates a meaningful learning experience, I believe. And academic rigor is born out of curiosity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. I love what you said, that what they learn, why they learn, and how they learn. The students, get that. On that note, are coming we come to the end of the session, and I would like to ask each of you for your closing thoughts on any final words on some strategies, some limitations that teachers and students they should keep in mind in making learning more engaging and meaningful, and so it truly becomes part of who we are. Um, Rupanjari, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Preeti. See, I thought I would draw everybody's attention to the way we evaluate children. Okay, the pen and paper exam at the end of the session or the semester or whatever is not the only way. We have been talking about formative assessments and summative assessments, whether it's ongoing or what we call the ongoing, what was introduced by the CBSE, but it was very badly implemented. Continuous comprehensive evaluation. In a better in its truest I mean, what should I say, in the real sense of it, it should mean that the formative, the assessment which happens in between is for learning, and also it gives a feedback to the teacher that am I doing the right thing or do I need to change course. So it happens in between at successive points when the teacher is starting are the children getting it, what I'm trying to say. So that then you, if the children are not getting it, then you have to change course. Okay, change your course. So by asking, for example, and there could be multiple ways, having short quizzes, asking children to write down, what did you learn today? Okay, things like that. You need not be a graded assignment always. And the other thing is something called a portfolio, which are called authentic assessments, where over a period of time, in fact, I've seen schools where, not in the, it was of course a private school where, but it can also be done where each child will have a folder, and the teacher or the child also can, the student can also do it. They collect their best pieces of work and they put it in the, keep putting in the folder. Okay, and so that the child, that the entire journey of the student from day one to day in the last day is kind of captured. And imagine, the if you give that agency to the student to collect it, it is so much fun, right? And they make a presentation. That's one way. Portfolio is a very, very important thing. It need not be a pen paper test, and there are other ways of doing it. For example, you do role plays, you have presentations. We are teaching so many other skills to students, not just that, just reproduce and what would, in a very, very crude term, say, vomit it out. We don't expect that children to do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Rupanjari. Krishna, any last thoughts?
Yeah, so I would just like to thank uh, everybody, including you, Kriti, and Rupanjari ji, and Youngsil for having, I mean, this together. I have learned a lot today. In fact, I see this as an opportunity to know so much and to think about it. I mean, while all of us are speaking, I'm thinking all the time that what more can be done. So, I mean, while we were speaking, I was thinking about the ideas that Rupanjari ji was suggesting, that why not take students outside and give them an exposure. Let's say if you're teaching biodiversity, take them to a park, or take them to a forest, or if they are teaching about history, take them to a museum or a place which tells you, which is basically historical, or let them do a lab practical, or make them do stuff. uh, and we were also talking about AI at the same time. I mean, there was a question where people were asking whether AI can help or not. So bringing all this together, what comes to my mind is that, I mean, it is strange, but it is true that it all, whatever Rupanjali ji is suggesting, whatever Yangshil is suggesting, is saying that is happening in his school, it is actually music to my ears. I would love to have such things every day, every moment, in fact. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of students do not like it these days. And that's a hard reality, and I don't understand why. I mean, maybe I do, but then I'm not very sure about it. They are so caught up with gadgets. Our school doesn't have gadgets. You can't bring gadgets. But even even when they're not with their gadgets, their heads are filled with the stories that have got into their heads because of those gadgets. And even while they are on an exposure visit, or if they are doing a lab practical, they're always discussing something. They're always somewhere else. They're living in a virtual reality. And these are very strong forces. I do not know. Uh, I mean, the wonder for a flower, the wonder for a bud, or the wonder for a blade of grass is not as much as the wonder for a smiley that you receive on a WhatsApp, or maybe anything that is techie, and then that gives you a lot of likes on your Instagram page. So I don't know. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that though we believe, and this is where I want to end or conclude, though we believe that we should do it, and as a practitioner, I'm telling you, when you do it, you feel as if you are on the side of the students, and students would love you for doing that. But the reality is, and that's the harsh reality, most students, perhaps maybe I'm a little bit too harsh, but maybe a lot of students, they don't feel that you are on their side. They, in fact, want to be in a box. You come, deliver, go. We don't want you to be in our lives. And, we have enough to anyways deal with. Don't take us to a trip. Don't make us do a practical. I mean, I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be a dystopian, but I'm trying to tell you that the reality is that these things which used to appear, which is music to my ears even today, I mean, for some reason, maybe people understand it, maybe they don't. They are not working, and we need to know why, and we need to somehow fix it. And maybe it is beyond now. It's not beyond textbooks. It's beyond schools. It's a societal level problem, and something has to done quickly about it, because I mean, it feels as if we are discussing something that should have been discussed 20 years before, and something else has happened. Things are changing very quickly, and it is not working.
But it's, step by step, I think so. Because
Yeah, yeah.
India is so diverse. With my experience also, it's going beyond the textbook. I think it still holds value. But again, we also had a webinar on the series which came on adolescence. Our last webinar was on that how we are so disengaged with, we don't know, as teachers, we don't know what lives they are leading. It's a completely different life, and I agree, Krishna, for that. We'll have more, I think so, conversation on that. So, Yangsel, any last thoughts you would like to share?
Thank you, ma'am. First, I would like to thank Miss Kriti for doing this webinar. It's been really fun and insightful. Thank you, ma'am Rupanjari, for all your insightful thoughts and what you think going beyond the textbook really means. Thank you, Sir Krishna, for all the concerns that you've shared. This is really meaningful, as these concerns must be dealt with before we actually move on to going beyond the textbooks literally. And my conclusive thoughts would be that it's going to be a tough journey, as it's been implemented in the society itself that it's the pen and paper exams that usually determine what a student has learned and how much the student has learned. And for a school, for a teacher, it's going to be really hard to take that stereotype out of the parents or the society's minds off. But I believe it's going to be a progressive action with all schools around the world, going beyond textbooks and going beyond the pen and paper exams as a whole, and giving priority to student comprehension and student-teacher relationship rather than memorizing facts from a textbook, ma'am. I think that's my final thought.
Thank you, Yangsel. Thank you, everyone, for giving your time and your thoughts. Over to you, Thuptil.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Kriti. And our panelists here, Rup Manjari, Yangsel, and Krishna, for such a thoughtful and engaging discussion. What I gathered from this discussion is that going beyond the textbook is not about removing structures. It is about enriching it, right? Today's conversation also helped me to reflect on how learning can be designed more intentionally, inclusively, and meaningfully, right? And I hope the audience will also resonate with that as well. My sincere thanks to teams at PLS, CP, Ritinjali for working behind the scenes to make this session possible. We have shared the relevant links in the chat for those who wish to stay connected and learn more about our work. And finally, thank you to all the audience members who have joined us for their questions and for their reflections. Your participation truly brought this conversation to life. We will be sharing a detailed report and the recorded session of this session, through email very shortly. And we look forward to welcoming you again in our next webinar. So thank you once again and good night.